Hey guys and gals, Nary here from Drake Wayne Gaming, and some of you know me on Twitter, the Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you another Let's Play episode of After Class, Coach's Path. Anyway, y'all, before we jump into it, just wanted to let y'all know that our Patreon is now up. For as little as $5, y'all can help support the channel and get some awesome rewards like permanent access to our community Discord server and future access to our upcoming Not Safe for Work videos. Those are only available to our patrons, y'all. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump right back in, shall we? Alarm Chan, you are up, and let's go. Yep, alrighty, alright, okay. And don't worry about it. I already told the class I'd be a bit late, so let's take it easy. I feel like I'm doing something really illegal. Except it's not. I mean, if you want to look like we weren't planning this, you could go to class. We can go to class before me. Actually, you should do that. Yeah. Huh? Why is that? There's one never mind. It's not important. There was a short pause before he said anything. The gap was too small to be noticed, but it was definitely there. You didn't notice that until his expression changed slightly. Huh, okay then, I'm not gonna pry. It's better that you don't. He looked troubled, but there's nothing you could do if he didn't want to tell you. What makes psychology of sexuality different than Psych 101? Well, Psych 101 is laying the groundwork for the perspectives of psychology themselves. What? Like, how they are researched, how different theories are invented, how they relate to each other, and so on. While it's not strictly necessary to understand psych of sexuality, it's recommended. Since you agreed to take my class instead of Psych 101, I'll teach you some basics to understand my class. Oh, okay, I'd like that. Anyway, psychology of sexuality emphasizes how those perspectives apply to sex, romance, and intimacy. It also gets into how sex, romance, and intimacy affect people's mental health, well-being, and how they socialize. And oh, gender identity plays a big role. Attitudes towards different sexual orientations and how those attitudes form are subject to study as well, but, let me back up a bit. For example, the evolutionary perspective says that people crave sex and strong sexual bonds in order to reproduce or fulfill base desires, with other behaviors and thoughts arising because of that. The personality perspective says sex and romance would fulfill certain goals a person has, whether they realize that they have them or not. It's not so much one perspective trying to win out against the others so much as trying to explain all the different events that happen with sex and romance as completely as possible, in a research-driven way. So you're saying that it's trying to explain sex and romance in a clinical way? Yes. Okay, I can understand that, yeah. I can go in depth regarding that, but you have a class to attend, and I need to teach myself. Ah, yeah, I forgot. You can go in without me. I'll go to my office first. Okay. When you headed to the class, you saw a lot of unfamiliar faces. Probably all of them, except one guy, Talbot, the one that stopped Coach Gil from doing something to you. Were you thankful when that happened? Yes, but for some reason you weren't that excited when you saw him, so you decided not to look at him. You were hoping that you could spend more time with Coach in the locker room, actually. There was one empty spot next to a student, so you decided to sit next to him. Oh, hey, I know you. Huh? You do? Yeah, English class. Henry, isn't it? Oh, yeah, that's me. I'm Jared. Nice to meet you. Don't offer me a footlong, Jared. Oh yeah, nice to meet you too. I feel bad that I didn't know him. Just let me know if you need anything. You look like a cool guy. Oh, will do, thanks. Ah, looks like our teacher is here. Coach Gil walked into the class casually and smiled at you briefly. It felt so weird because you two were planning it, but he looked so calm, so you decided not to think about it that much. Alright, good morning everyone. Sorry that I'm late. I tried my best to come here as soon as possible, but I still got here late. That's a total lie! Anyway, before we get into the syllabus itself, I have one question for you. How many of you signed up for this course thinking it was sex ed or a place to make dirty jokes? What happened next was quite shocking. There are a lot of people who raised their hands. Interestingly, Coach Gil didn't look as surprised as you thought he'd be. Figures. Alright, okay guys, you can put your hands down now. I'm gonna make this clear. This is just a psychology course like any other here, except it's focusing on sex, romance, and intimacy. I won't be teaching anyone how to seduce anyone or anything like that. Although the ways that people do that can have interesting effects on people's mentalities, so we'll talk about those things in a more clinical way. Plus, I'm pretty sure that you guys can seduce each other just fine anyway. There's no need for me to teach you guys. One second, y'all. It is water time. Oh yes, the sweet liquid of the gods. Okay. You can hear the students chuckling when he said that. It seemed like this class would be a fun one. Okay, now we're going into the syllabus. We're going to learn about types of relationships, defining what intimacy is, different perspectives on sex and romance, the history of sex research, and how culture and religion play a role. It might seem a lot to do in a trimester, but don't worry, it's not. Since this might or might not be your first time attending this course, we'll talk about the basics first. What basics? Just the definitions, what to expect, something like that. Okay. You saw Coach Gil start writing the word biological on the blackboard. To start with, I'll outline the five big psychological approaches that are used to understand any psychological event. We've got the biological approach, the psychodynamic approach, the cognitive, behavioral, and humanistic. Why is humanistic on here? Y'all aren't human. It should be called animalistic. Or anthroistic. There are other perspectives within those perspectives, but we don't worry about those just yet. We'll use these approaches and their theories as the framework for understanding the research we'll be discussing, and of course, we're looking at how they apply to sex in particular. Biological is pretty straightforward, researchers arguing that sex and romance are dictated by impulses in your body and brain. Basic instinct, evolution, hormones, and the desire to reproduce specifically. Psychodynamic is all about the unconscious mind. It argues you don't really know why you're in love or horny or whatever, but someone analyzing your dreams can figure it out. Coach Gil frowned a little, stopping in the middle of writing the other words. That one's not as relevant anymore, but it's still an important part of the history of sex research. Hell, of psych research in general. The cognitive approach is fairly complex. To oversimplify, it argues that sex and romance are shaped by your memories. Any formative experiences that stayed with you turn into your preferences for partners in certain intimate acts. Like if you had a strong father figure growing up who protected you from trauma, or the opposite, one who gave you trauma. Your memories of that father figure would cause you to be drawn to people similar to him or to be repulsed by them. So, people with actual daddy issues wouldn't want to date daddies? Coach Gil looked over and gave a smirk as the rest of the class snickered. Actually, in psychology, the term daddy issues is called the father complex, or... I wonder what it's called. I know a daughter being attracted to her father is called an Electra complex, and I know a son being attracted to his mother is called an Oedipus complex. What is a son being attracted to his father called? Pioneered by Freud, and later taken up by Jung and subsequent thinkers in the field. Anyway, it's not that simple, actually. In a lot of cases, it's the opposite. People with daddy issues would date daddies, whether they are male or female. Of course, it was just borrowing your terms. There are better terms for that, but if that makes it easier for you to understand, we'll use that. With that, a strange kind of tension seemed to fall over you and the rest of the students. It just wasn't a question anyone expected a teacher to take seriously. But you could tell that he was probably right. Fetishes aren't something I planned on talking about too much for this course, but they're certainly fascinating. I feel like I walked into something I didn't want to. As you followed along with the rest of Coach Gil's explanation, you tried to imagine doing the same thing each Friday until the end of the trimester. But you couldn't. You couldn't possibly guess what this class had in store for you, not with Coach Gil teaching it. Understanding the behavioral approach boils down to what's known as conditioning, getting someone to associate a certain trigger with a certain event or idea or a memory. So someone who sees a lot of porn videos who set in parks could get aroused just by seeing a park, not even thinking about porn while doing it, just from that trigger. Was this a good idea? Were you going to be okay with being in Coach Gil's class? Second, y'all. Water time. Oh, dear Lord. That's so delicious. Such good water. Incredible water. Okay. The thing about humanistic approach is that it's more about sex positivity and identifying harmful trends in relationships. It's the belief that we're all good people at heart, so sex partners and romances are part of a journey to realizing your best self. Hell, that applied to being on his basketball team, too. Even disregarding him touching you, Coach Gil seemed kind of dangerous. The kind of man who got what he wanted sooner or later, so seeing him act like a normal teacher felt bizarre. Ooh, excuse me. After a while, these thoughts were still with you while Gil described a man cheating on his wife and how each approach would explain why that happened. It all seemed fine until the lecture took a sharp left turn. Hey, teach! What about consent? Do you think that's important? Suddenly the tension in the room and your body grew frighteningly heavy. You mean in the scope of the course? Sure, but I mean in general, and is consent important? Look on that guy's face. He knows exactly what he's doing. He was clearly confronting him. And in the face of it, Coach Gil smiled and nodded. Of course it is. It's so easily misunderstood for how it works. There's seminars for harassment and appropriate conduct in workplaces for a reason. In particular, people struggle with the concept of welcome versus unwelcome conduct. If one person doesn't accept what the other person is doing or saying, it's unwelcome conduct. It's assault. And if it's happening at work or in school, it's especially troublesome for the regulations in place. I can't believe what I'm hearing! Not from him! You're profoundly uncomfortable by how confused and conflicted you were now. Angry? Relieved? Annoyed? You didn't even know how to feel. The only word that fit was shocked. However, the class hung on his every word. If all people involved enjoy what's happening, then it's considered welcome conduct. So, as long as it doesn't interfere with productivity or lead to abuse of authority, welcome conduct is harmless. The tricky part is telling the difference. Coming from him, this whole thing about consent sounds so ironic. Flashback to 3 days ago. Considering how much he knows about these kinds of things, what he did lately made sense. He didn't apologize once he realized that I was upset, no longer enjoying it. The class fell silent after that. You couldn't tell if that was a good thing or a bad thing. It seemed like they all knew that he wasn't the guy that cared about... consent. Not to mention he had this kind of a bad rep going around him. Everyone knew about his lecherous nature. The fact that he shrugged it off just like that, there's something cool about it. Oh my god. Henry, you've got Stockholm Syndrome. Oh my god. Could someone even say that was cool? Probably not. He'd handled the situation perfectly was more fitting. Now, back to how this cheating husband might have been conditioned to expect women to disappoint him. The rest of the lecture was a blur. He tried to pay attention, but it just wasn't happening. The time really dragged on. The course never felt this long and awkward before. It seemed like they were trying to get on Coach Gil's nerves, but it just didn't happen. He eventually learned a thing or two about him. It was supposed to be a fun, wit-filled class session, but somehow it turned into a battlefield for some students and him. Ah, finally, it's done! Quite tiring, huh? It is. It was a heck of a ride. I didn't know what was happening, to be honest. Same here. It was really wild. Heh. You were the one who started the wild. Well, I was honestly just curious. Sure, I believe you. Anyway, I gotta meet my girlfriend now. She says she's waiting for me in front of the classroom, so I'll see you later. Oh, okay. Have a good day, Jared. You too. He walked to greet his girlfriend, and you saw them walking together. Aw, they look sweet. Since Coach Gil left the classroom when it concluded, he had nothing to do until the practice started. Huh. Maybe I should go eat something before then. I'm a little bit hungry after that exercise I did with Coach. I need to rest my mind after what happened. Okay, y'all. Water time. Oh, yeah. Ugh, it's always crowded in here. I thought I would be able to rest my mind here, but it's not going to happen, it seems. I don't see Anders either, so I can't sit next to him. Hold that thought, Henry. That sounded really mean. It sounded like you were using him so you could find a place to sit down. My mind is a mess after that psychology class. I'm just gonna eat whatever they have today. And quick, too. My legs are gonna give out soon. My phone just vibrated. I wonder why that is. You hurried to get in the line before it got more crowded. When you got your food and paid for the meal, you looked for a place to sit down. Even though it took you a while, you eventually found a seat. It wasn't easy, so it felt more satisfying than before. Now that I'm finally sitting, I should check what that was. You pulled your phone out of your pocket. It revealed a text message from Coach Gil when you looked at the screen. He said that practice will start in an hour, huh? Let's see, he sent that 25 minutes ago. I still have more than half an hour to enjoy this lunch. After you finished eating lunch, you headed to the restroom to change your pants to the pair Coach Gil gave to you. You could have changed in the locker room, but you were a little bit too shy to change there. With the training pants on, you headed to the school gym. You're greeted as soon as you opened the door. The newbie team members and Gordon were here, Brom included. Hey! Oh! Henry! You're here! You two are early. And the others too. Looks like I'm not that late. Nah, not really. The others are already outside with Talbot. Gordon's here because, well, we wanted to say sorry. Huh? What gives? Sorry that we pressured you to open the box. I'm not sure what would happen if we did. Coach Gil didn't seem like he wanted anyone to open that box. Even though we're still curious. That part is very true. Well, nothing really happened, so there's no need to apologize. You sure? Yeah. Thank you, Henry. Yeah, no problem. The other reason Gordon stayed here is because he doesn't like Talbot too much. Huh? Why is that? He's a bitch. I mean, he's a great player, but he's a little bit... I don't know how to explain it. I think I know what you mean. Well, as long as we stick together, we should be fine, yeah? That's a weird thing to say in this situation, but okay. Alrighty, y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and pause it right there. I just got up, I need coffee, and I need food to start my day. Anyway, y'all, I love you all. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Leave a super thanks. Share a tip if you can, it always helps. And please check out that Patreon, y'all. It really helps the channel. Anyway, I love you all. See you on the next video. Bye-bye!